I found my daughter outside a children's library in a quiet suburb of Chicago. It was one of those tidy streets where everything looks intentional. Trimmed hedges, symmetrical porches, small American flags near the mailboxes. The kind of place where reputations matter more than character. Emily stood near the brick wall beneath a painted mural of smiling animals reading books. 2 suitcases were positioned beside her, upright, zipped, deliberate. Not hastily packed, not chaotic, organized. That told me more than her silence did. Owen held his backpack like a flotation device. He wasn't crying either. He looked alert. Children know when the air shifts. They don't always understand the words, but they recognize the temperature change. Emily wasn't crying. That frightened me more than tears ever could have. Her face was pale, composed, almost clinical. I had seen that expression once before, when she was 16 and broke her wrist during a softball game. She hadn't screamed. She had simply said, "Dad, something's wrong." She looked at me the same way now. "Dad," she said. No embrace, no collapse, just the word. I took 1 suitcase from her without asking questions. It was heavier than I expected. Practical clothes, essentials, documents I assumed. She had always been methodical. "What happened?" I asked, but my voice was even, calm, neutral. "Michael filed this morning," she replied. His father recommended a firm. Recommended. Interesting choice of word. I nodded once. "The house?" I asked. "In his name. Accounts. Joint, but mostly structured through his firm's advisor. His father insisted years ago." Of course he did. Michael's father believed in insulation, financial, social, reputational. He had built his career in law by anticipating liability. Apparently, he had applied the same discipline to his son's marriage. Emily's lips tightened slightly. "He said marrying a mechanic's daughter damaged perception at the firm. Not damaged the marriage. Damaged perception." I closed the trunk of my car with more force than necessary, but my voice remained steady. "And the custody terms?" "They sent preliminary language. Alternate weekends. He says stability matters. The school district. The house. The house. I have worked around machines my entire life. Engines, transmissions, hydraulic systems. Everything fails eventually, but never without signs. Noise precedes rupture. Heat precedes seizure. This had been building. I helped Owen into the back seat. Fastened his belt. He looked at me finally. "Are we staying with you, Grandpa?" "Yes," I said. "For now." He nodded, accepting the answer without further inquiry. As I moved around the car toward the driver's side, a woman stepped away from her porch across the street. Mid-50s, hair pulled back tightly, the kind of person who notices things. She approached slowly, glancing once toward Michael's house. "David," she said quietly. I didn't know if I should say anything. Her voice carried the tone of someone who had rehearsed this moment. I waited. "Silver Coupe," she continued. "Wednesday and Saturday, around 1:30 p.m. Engine running. He stays until dark." For half a second, I assumed she had mistaken houses. "That's impossible," I said evenly. "My wife works from home." She swallowed, then opened the CCTV app. "I didn't want to tell you, but I thought you should know." Emily had turned toward us. She wasn't startled. She was listening. I took my phone from my pocket and opened the security application. I had installed the system myself 2 years ago, not because I distrusted anyone, but because I distrust uncertainty. Wednesday, 1:28 p.m. There it was. A silver coupe parked 2 houses down. Engine idling. Driver remained inside for exactly 3 minutes before walking out of frame. Saturday, 1:31 p.m. Same vehicle. Same positioning. Same duration. The timestamps did not lie. I switched camera angles. Front porch. Driveway. Side entrance. Wednesday, 1:34 p.m. Michael leaving the house. Casual. No briefcase. Saturday, 1:36 p.m. Same. Returning at 6:42 p.m. On Wednesday, 7:08 p.m. On Saturday. Emily leaned closer to the screen. She didn't ask questions. She already knew. The divorce was not the beginning of betrayal. It was the administrative conclusion of it. I locked the phone and slid it back into my pocket. "Thank you," I said to the neighbor. "I appreciate the information." She nodded, relieved, and returned to her porch. I opened the driver's door. Inside, I felt something settle. Not anger. Anger is inefficient. Cloud sequencing. What I felt was clarity. Michael had not filed for divorce because of family reputation. He had filed because he needed narrative control. If he was leaving anyway, it was better to leave on his terms, professionally advised, financially insulated, socially justified. But he had underestimated one variable: experience. I have spent decades listening to men explain mechanical failures they caused themselves. The pattern is predictable. Deflection, blame, reputation management. Michael and his father believed the equation was simple. House in his name, law firm resources, structured assets, a wife from a modest background with limited leverage. They had not calculated for me. As I started the engine, Emily spoke quietly. "I should have seen it earlier." "No," I replied. "You saw what you were meant to see." She looked at me, searching. "When someone is planning departure," I continued, "they start organizing the exit long before they announce it." I drove slowly away from the curb. In the rearview mirror, Michael's house stood immaculate, symmetrical, curated. Image intact. For now. Owen leaned forward slightly from the back seat. "Grandpa." "Yes. Are we in trouble?" I glanced at him in the mirror. "No," I said calmly. "We're in transition. Children understand tone more than vocabulary." He leaned back, reassured. As we turned onto the main road, I reviewed the facts in silence. Affair confirmed through visual pattern and timestamps. Preemptive divorce filing. Financial structuring biased toward Michael. Custody positioning framed around stability. This was not spontaneous. It was strategic. And strategy can be countered. I have never believed in loud retaliation. Noise is for amateurs. Documentation is for professionals. Michael believed he was ending a marriage. He had no idea he had just initiated a process. And processes, when managed correctly, do not end the way the initiator expects. I drove toward the expressway without telling Emily our destination. She assumed we were heading to my apartment above the auto shop. We were not. Not yet. Because something inside me had already shifted. The silver coupe was not just evidence of infidelity. It was evidence of miscalculation, and I have built my life correcting miscalculations. I did not turn toward my apartment above the auto shop. Emily noticed after 10 minutes. "Dad," she said carefully, "the shop exit was back there." "I know." She didn't press further. She has always understood that when I speak in short sentences, the matter is already decided. We drove north instead, away from the suburb. Away from the law firm towers. Away from the tidy streets where perception outranks loyalty. The expressway opened in front of us. Gray and efficient. Owen had fallen asleep in the back seat, his head tilted against the window, backpack still strapped to his shoulders like he feared it might be taken. Emily stared forward. "I don't want to be a burden," she said quietly. "You aren't," I replied. "I should have protected myself better." "Protection isn't paranoia," I said. "It's structure. And structure takes time to understand." She looked at me then, confused. We exited near the lake. The neighborhood changed gradually. Wider roads, older trees, security patrol vehicles at the entrance to a gated community most people assume belongs to corporate executives or inherited money. We approached the guard station. The security officer leaned forward, recognized my vehicle, and raised the barrier without a word. Emily turned to me slowly. "Dad, where are we?" "Home," I said. "Not the apartment. Not the shop. Home." We drove past modern houses with glass facades and steel lines. Subtle architecture that signals confidence without noise. We stopped in front of a property set slightly back from the water. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the gray surface of the lake. Clean angles. Private dock. Discreet landscaping. Emily looked at the address plaque. You have the wrong house. I pressed the remote clip to my visor. The gate slid open smoothly. No, I said. I don't. I parked inside the driveway and stepped out. For a moment, Emily did not move. Dad? She said slowly. Who owns this? I do. Silence. The kind that recalibrates memory. I opened the trunk and removed the suitcases as if this were routine. How? She asked. That's a longer answer. Inside, the house was minimal but warm. Stone fireplace, custom cabinetry, understated furnishings. No extravagance. No gold fixtures. Just quality. Owen woke as I opened the back door. Are we at a hotel? No, I said. We're somewhere safer. Emily followed me inside, her movements cautious, like she was entering someone else's life. I don't understand, she said. I set the suitcases near the staircase. After your mother passed, I liquidated some assets from the shop, not because I needed to, because I was repositioning. She stared at me. I invested in industrial real estate, warehouses near rail lines, distribution properties. Later, small stakes in 2 manufacturing startups. One did very well. How well? Well enough. I walked to the kitchen island and poured a glass of water, more for rhythm than thirst. I kept the apartment above the shop because it was useful. People treat you differently when they think you're limited. You let them think you were struggling, she said. I let them think what they wanted. Her expression shifted slowly from confusion to something else. How long? 7 years. She leaned back against the counter. Michael never knew. No. And his father? Definitely not. I watched the realization settle. I had not hidden poverty. I had concealed abundance. Not to deceive her, to protect her from distortion. When you grow up around easy money, I said, you learn the wrong lessons. I wanted you to understand labor, not leverage. Her eyes filled slightly, but she controlled it. So all this time, I confirmed, I was choosing simplicity. She walked toward the window overlooking the lake. You let them look down on you. I don't measure myself against men who confuse billing rates with character. Owen wandered into the living room and pressed his hands against the glass. Grandpa, there's a dock. Yes, I said. We'll use it. Emily turned back toward me. Why didn't you tell me? Because information changes behavior. I didn't want yours changed. Silence again. Different this time. What are you going to do? She asked finally. About Michael? Yes. Nothing. Her eyebrows lifted. Nothing impulsive. I corrected. Facts have their own velocity. I just need to make sure they're traveling in the right direction. She studied me. Dad, are you angry? Anger is a reaction. I prefer positioning. I walked to my study, a quiet room near the back of the house. Oak desk, dual monitors, file cabinets. I opened my laptop and accessed the CCTV archive again. Downloaded the clips, backed them up to encrypted storage. I documented timestamps, cross-referenced them with public court filing records. The divorce had been filed at 10:12 a.m. The silver coupe had appeared that same Wednesday at 1:28 p.m. Patterns matter. Emily stood in the doorway watching me. You're building something, she said. Yes. What? A timeline. She hesitated. I don't want revenge. This isn't revenge. Then what is it? Correction. I saved the files and closed the laptop. Michael and his father believe this is about class, I said. About perception. About preserving image. She nodded. They think they are controlling the narrative. I met her eyes. They are not. Outside, the lake shifted with the wind, surface steady but alive underneath. Emily exhaled slowly. I feel like I never knew you. That's because you only saw the surface. Owen ran into the room. Grandpa, can I have the room with the big window? Yes. I said without hesitation. Emily watched him leave, then looked back at me. Are we safe here? Yes. From what? From being underestimated. She absorbed that quietly. I moved to the fireplace and adjusted the flame. Rest tonight, I said. Tomorrow you'll call a different attorney. Not the one Michael's father recommended. You already have someone in mind, she said. Yes. And Michael? He believes he has already won. I paused, then added, he has no idea what board he's actually playing on. Emily didn't smile, but for the first time since I found her outside that library, she stood straighter. The modest mechanic he and his father had dismissed was not who they thought, and I had allowed that miscalculation to exist for years. Sometimes concealment is not weakness. It is leverage deferred. I did not move immediately. Escalation without preparation is noise. And noise favors the man who filed first. Michael had filed first. That meant he believed momentum was his. I have never respected momentum. I respect documentation. The morning after Emily and Owen settled into the house by the water, I began structuring the countermeasure. First, legal insulation. I called an attorney I had funded quietly for 6 years, a litigation specialist who sat on the advisory board of a foundation I underwrote. His name would mean nothing to Michael's father until it meant everything. We met that afternoon in my study. I laid out the facts without embellishment. Affair supported by time-stamped video evidence. Patterned visits. Divorce filing initiated prior to any disclosure. Custody positioning framed around stability. Financial architecture structured through Michael's firm advisors. He listened without interruption. When I finished, he asked only one question. Do you want leverage, or do you want destruction? Leverage, I replied. Destruction is emotional. Leverage is permanent. He nodded. We began quietly. The video clips were authenticated and preserved with metadata verification. Not for scandal. For admissibility. We subpoenaed phone records through appropriate channels, not for public display, but to establish correlation between Michael's physical presence and digital activity. Pattern confirmation is more powerful than accusation. Next, financial posture. Michael's father believed in structuring assets. That meant there were layers, corporate holdings, deferred compensation, reputation-sensitive partnerships. What he underestimated was proximity. One of the senior partners at Michael's firm also sat on the board of the same industrial development trust one funded anonymously for years. He did not know the extent of my involvement. He would. Information moves differently in certain rooms. I requested a private meeting. Not to threaten. Not to accuse. To inform. When we met downtown 2 days later, I brought no anger with me. Only documentation. I placed the printed timeline on the table between us. I am not here to create scandal, I said evenly. I am here to ensure that decisions made within your firm are not influenced by misrepresented circumstances. He read quietly. Silver Coupe entries. Timestamp overlays. Filing chronology. His expression shifted only once, when he reached the custody positioning language. Your son-in-law filed before disclosing the affair? He asked. Yes. And is pursuing primary custody on grounds of stability? Yes. He leaned back slowly. His father has been advocating for his advancement this quarter, he said carefully. I assumed as much. Silence. Reputational institutions fear one thing above all: pattern exposure. I did not ask him to withdraw Michael's promotion track. I did not ask him to discipline anyone. I simply said, I believe your board deserves full context before elevating individuals into positions of trust. Nothing more. Facts, given space, move on their own. Meanwhile, Emily met with our attorney. Custody strategy shifted from defense to exposure. Michael's filing narrative emphasized environment and continuity. We emphasized deception and character. Affairs alone rarely shift custody. Affairs concealed while filing strategically often do. The next step required patience. I authorized a discreet inquiry into Bradley, the owner of the Silver Coupe. Financial advisors are required to disclose certain conflicts of interest, particularly those involving compromised judgment. Bradley was married. 2 children. High net worth client base. Within 10 days, his compliance department received documentation. Not from me directly, from someone who values regulatory consistency. Simultaneously, Michael received a request from his firm's internal review committee to clarify discrepancies in personal conduct disclosures. He called Emily that night. His tone was different, less assured. "What did your father do?" he asked. "Nothing," she replied truthfully. "I had done nothing illegal. I had simply allowed truth to circulate." 2 weeks later, Michael's anticipated promotion was deferred pending review. His father's seat on a charitable board, one where he had previously voted against funding applications from families he deemed unstable, was quietly vacated. No public announcement, just absence. The pressure began to shift. Michael's attorney contacted ours, suggesting mediation adjustments. Custody language softened. Financial division discussions widened. I did not gloat. Gloating reveals motive. I remained silent. The final exposure was not theatrical. It was procedural. During mediation, our attorney presented the timeline formally. Not dramatically. Not with photographs projected on screens. Simply entered into record. Affair commencement 18 months prior. Divorce filing initiated prior to disclosure. Custody claim framed around moral positioning. Michael avoided eye contact. His father did not attend. When asked directly whether the affair existed, Michael answered yes. The room recalibrated. Custody terms adjusted significantly within 48 hours. Primary residence awarded to Emily. Shared custody structured realistically. Financial settlement expanded beyond initial offer. Michael attempted one final call to me. I answered. "You didn't have to ruin my career," he said. "I didn't ruin anything," I replied calmly. "I corrected a narrative. You went after my father." "No," I said evenly. "I allowed his peers to see him clearly." Silence. "You could have handled this privately." "I did." He had no answer. The irony was simple. He believed divorcing a mechanic's daughter would preserve perception. Instead, his own conduct became the perception. I never posted a photograph. Never sent an anonymous tip to tabloids. Never raised my voice. I positioned evidence where integrity matters most. In rooms that decide trust. Emily moved through the process with composure. Owen adapted quickly to the new school district near the lake. The house remained quiet, stable. One evening, as the sun lowered over the water, Emily stood beside me on the dock. "Did you plan all this years ago?" she asked. "No," I said, "but I built the capacity. For this. For being underestimated." She looked out across the lake. "I feel guilty," she admitted. "Like everything collapsed because of me." "Structures collapse when they're hollow," I said. "You didn't hollow it." She nodded slowly. Michael attempted reconciliation once. Not with her heart, with optics. He apologized. Said he had been under pressure. Said his father influenced him. Trust does not return because pressure shifts. It returns when character changes. And character rarely changes under exposure. By the end of the quarter, Michael had not only lost promotion trajectory, he had lost internal sponsorship. Bradley resigned quietly under compliance review. No dramatic headlines. Just absence. That is how reputations actually fall. Not through explosion. Through quiet removal. I remained what I had always been. A business owner. A mechanic by choice. A man who understands that engines, like institutions, fail when misalignment is ignored. Michael mistook restraint for weakness. His father mistook modest living for limitation. They learned something different. Silence is not submission. It is surveillance. An experience when patient is devastating. A year passed. No headlines. No courtroom theatrics. No dramatic confrontations in parking lots. Just consequences. Michael's name disappeared quietly from the internal candidate list for partnership. It was never announced as a demotion. It was framed as restructuring priorities. In professional language, that means isolation. His father's influence thinned. Board invitations slowed. Certain charity galas were attended without him. No one accused him publicly of bias or hypocrisy. They simply stopped asking for his opinion. Reputation rarely collapses in flames. It erodes. Emily rebuilt carefully. She enrolled in a design certification program she had postponed for years while supporting Michael's schedule. Classes 3 evenings a week. Portfolio development on weekends. Grant applications submitted with precision. She stopped apologizing for existing. Owen adjusted faster than any of us expected. Children recalibrate to emotional weather more efficiently than adults. He made friends at his new school near the lake. He learned to fish from the dock. He stopped asking when he would go back. He understood. Back was not forward. One evening in early spring, Emily found me in the study reviewing quarterly reports from one of my warehouse holdings. "Michael called again," she said. "And he says he wants to fix things." "Does he?" She hesitated. "He says he made mistakes under pressure. That his father influenced him. That the firm atmosphere changed him." I closed the laptop. "Pressure reveals alignment," I said. "It doesn't create it." She sat across from me. "I don't hate him," she admitted. "I just don't trust him." That's enough. Trust is not a switch. It is a structure built from repeated behavior. Once fractured, it requires reconstruction at the foundation. Michael did not want reconstruction. He wanted restoration. Those are different. 3 months later, Emily met Kevin, a history teacher at Owen's school. Divorced, quiet, observant. The kind of man who asks questions and waits for answers. He knew everything. She told him early: the affair, the divorce, the exposure, my involvement. He did not flinch. He did not ask about the house or the business. He asked about Owen's interests. That told me enough. I met him on a Saturday afternoon. We stood at the edge of the dock while Owen attempted to cast too far into the water. "You handled things carefully," Kevin said to me. "I handled them legally." He nodded. "I don't have much to offer materially," he added. "That's rarely what matters," I replied. He looked at me directly. "I'm not here for security." "I know," I said. "Men reveal themselves in what they do not pursue." Kevin did not pursue access. He pursued presence. A year after I found Emily outside that library, she married again. The ceremony took place in the backyard of the house by the water. No extravagant display, no imported flowers, no choreographed entrances, just a white canopy, simple chairs, and the lake behind them reflecting late afternoon light. Michael was not invited. He did not protest. By then, he understood that certain doors close without noise. His father did not attend either. Pride is expensive when unsupported. Emily walked toward Kevin without hesitation. Owen carried the rings with absolute seriousness. I stood slightly to the side, not at the center. This was not my redemption. It was hers. After the vows, there was no excessive applause. Just quiet acknowledgement. The kind that feels earned rather than performed. Later that evening, as guests drifted away and the lights along the dock reflected in the water, Kevin approached me. "I won't make promises I can't keep," he said. "But I will show up." "That's sufficient," I replied. Consistency outperforms grand declarations. Michael called once more after the wedding. "I lost everything," he said. "No," I corrected calmly. "You lost alignment. You ruined my father. I revealed him. You destroyed my career. I corrected your timing." Silence filled the line. "I loved her," he said finally. "You loved the version of her that didn't challenge your narrative," I replied. He ended the call without further argument. I did not block his number. Closure does not require theatrics. It requires clarity. Today I still work at the shop 3 days a week. Not because I must, because I choose to. Grease under the fingernails grounds a man. It reminds him that systems function through maintenance, not status. My investment business runs quietly in the background. Warehouses lease. Manufacturing contracts renew. Dividends accumulate. None of it defines me. What defines me is this. I did not scream. I did not threaten. I did not seek spectacle. I documented. I positioned. I allowed truth to move through the right channels. Experience is a currency younger men underestimate. They mistake modest clothing for modest capability. They confuse silence with submission. They assume absence of display means absence of power. They are wrong. When I found my daughter outside that library, she was not crying. That was the moment I understood the real work ahead was not revenge. It was restoration. Restoring her dignity. Restoring structural fairness. Restoring alignment. The silver coupe that once idled quietly on Wednesdays and Saturdays is gone now. Bradley relocated after compliance review. Michael transferred departments under supervision. No public disgrace, just professional gravity. Engines fail when ignored. Institutions fail when misaligned. Families fail when pride overrides loyalty. But engines can also be rebuilt. And institutions can recalibrate. And families, the right ones, can strengthen under pressure. Last week, Owen stood beside me in the garage. "Grandpa," he asked, "why do people think old cars are weak?" "They don't understand maintenance," I said. He considered that carefully. The sun was setting as we closed the garage door. The engine of my life is still running. Not loudly, not aggressively, just steadily. Because real wealth is not in accounts or houses by the water. It is in the people who remain beside you when the engine is idling and the sun is going down. And in the discipline to know that silence, when strategic, is never weakness. It is control.